Shanann Watts and her two daughters, 3-year-old Celeste and 4-year-old Bella, vanished on Monday. Their startling disappearance triggering a statewide alert as police and the FBI focus on her home outside Denver, where she was last seen.
And the viciousness of the crime. And equally aggravating in this court's determination is the despicable act of disposing of the bodies in the manner in which they were done in this case. I've been a judicial officer now for starting my 17th year, and I could objectively say that this is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen.
All right, welcome back to Watts the Obsession live stream and chat. There's always a plan B, and sometimes it works out better than plan A. And welcome to everybody who's here. I am so glad that you are here tonight. We are going to be talking about the Watts case and all the crazy stuff that's been going on, maybe not out there, but in my little Watts the Obsession channel world, and just a very some people that I've been working with. And tonight we are going to watch. Okay, so as I was making this part 2 of this series, Nicole Kessinger is more involved than you know, and law enforcement basically helped her. I guess that's what I should say. In the process of doing research for this little series, we came across much more than I bargained for, or anyone bargained for, or that I guarantee anyone, any of you, any of us could have seen coming. I promise you that's what's up. Sometimes, it's like you want to know until you know, and then you don't know what to do with it. Well, that's the position that I'm in. So I know in the recent live stream, some people were frustrated because I couldn't be completely forthcoming the way I strive to be, the way I believe I usually am, with the information that I was just like breaking in my world that day. Maybe I shouldn't have gone live. Maybe it was premature. And in retrospect, if I was being as responsible as possible, that's probably the case. But my intention was to share things with you guys as they were happening, because that is so authentic and I think kind of exciting. I mean, for me, it was nerve-wracking, but it is also exciting. And, you guys make up the channel. Without you, this isn't happening. And I mean, I appreciate you and I really mean it. And I want to give you as much as I can. And that was my only intention. I guess the problem was, once I was live and wanted to share this stuff with you, I'm getting emails from the attorney who's new to me, since, my dad used to do a lot of that stuff before he passed away. And then there was another person who is just, he can't do any contracting work now, just too busy. So I don't really know the pace at which he works. We don't have a rhythm of communication down, and his standards are also different, but I trust him. I've worked with him before. He comes highly recommended. He actually works in this kind of law. And we were communicating back and forth, and I was starting to think twice about some things I was going to share, and rightfully so. So if you're mad at me about that, so be it. But I did my best and my intentions were good. And so now you know about all that, right? So based on the information that was learned, that is, I'm sorry, just going to have to be revealed in its good timing. So, it's not going to harm anyone, first of all. Certainly don't ever want to be implying anyone who is innocent of doing anything wrong or committing a crime. I don't want to imply anyone of doing something wrong when they're not. I mean, that's freaking terrible. That's not what we're about here. This channel is about truth and facts and doing what is best for the victims. And then, exploring dynamics that exist within cases that have elements that all humans relate to, because it is so super valuable. Because at the end of the day, I care about people, humanity, victims, all of you guys. And, my career as a behavioral therapist and working with people and trying to understand their behaviors and what behaviors contribute to making your life good and what behaviors are going to contribute to making your life bad. That's kind of the focus of what I do. So obviously that spills over into the channel. If that's not the kind of thing you want to see, then there's a lot of other true crime channels out there that take different approaches. you're interested in any of that, I think that you're in the right place here because I think we do it better than anybody else. So as I'm watching this, okay, now the part 2 in itself, after, learning some information, it was this past Sunday. I'll never forget it. That day is marked in my history book for sure. I had to split the part 2, which was probably way too lengthy anyway. It was like 2 hours and 20 minutes long. I had to split that into 2 parts because some of the questions that were posed in that part 2 were moot because now I have the answers. And some of the questions became more relevant and even more emphasis. And, if I didn't tweak that, it just would have been a waste of everybody's time. It's like, it just would have, I don't know. It just felt really silly. So tomorrow night at 9 p.m., true crime author Kathleen McKenna-Hootson is going to be on the channel, and she's going to talk about the Watts case. Even though she swore it off a long time ago, she is back, and it's actually the work that we've been doing that has inspired her to, oh my God, you should be so excited, write another book on the Watts case because she does it better than anyone else. If you haven't read her first book, Blood in Marriage, I definitely recommend reading it. Tomorrow night, we'll be giving some copies away. So definitely tune in for that. It's a great book. In the process of her researching for that book, this was right when, the case was being investigated or whatever you want to call that. When things were breaking, when things were new. And she was like hot on the investigation when the investigation was hot, right? And so she had interactions with like District Attorney Rourke himself and other people that are pivotal in this case that I certainly have not had personal interactions with. And she has a lot of stories to tell and information to share. So that should be super interesting. And, I just want to say thank you for the super chats. DC Prime asked what happened. I don't know what you're talking about, girl, but I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, friend. I don't know what, that was just a few minutes ago. I'll try to catch another message for your sweetheart. And Curious Christine says, thank you for your research. Well, you are so super welcome. And I actually love researching. That's something DC Primetime and I have in common. We're kind of research scientific method nerds, right? And, I always say I love a good pie chart. And, the more things are supported by evidence, the more I feel comfortable in putting it out there. And then the more we can rely on that as being an actual part of the story that we are all so curious about. Because after all, there really is no case out there like the Watts case. I really think it is like an epic case of our lifetimes. And we always ask the question why, but I think the focus of this channel, Watts the Obsession, it happens to be called, explores all of those different elements, and they are not singular. So as this part 2, as we're calling it, I gave it a different official name, but I can't remember what it was right now. I'll tell you guys in a second if I can get to it. It's still, thank you, Chicken Lady, and I'm so glad you're here, and thank you so much for moderating. I miss you, and I love you, and thank you, and I trust you, and I'm glad you're here. She's like, the last 1% is always the slowest to download, and then it started crawling, and it still is. Well, probably because I'm live now, so that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some previous versions of this part 2 that I think we're just going to premiere tomorrow at 7 p.m. before the 9 p.m. with Kathleen McKenna-Hootson. Crap. Is that too early for my Australian moderators? Because I can't function without you guys. Is that going to be too early, Kez, Jody, everyone else? Because that's what I'd like to do if we can, but I need you guys there. So I just realized that's going to be like super early for you guys, right? Yeah, everyone's so happy to see Chicken Lady. Y'all remember Chicken Lady, right? Chicken Lady girl, you have a channel, right? Can we pop that in the chat, the link, please? And I'm so sorry. I am remiss for being up on anything other than like my own butt and like just too much stuff to do, my own channel, my career. You guys know my dad passed away in December, and I'm the executor of his estate, his will and estate. And he was practicing law when he passed away, like had a live practice, worked 48 hours before he died. And New York state law basically wraps that into the whole estate. And, I went to law school and I left it because I wanted to do other things. And my God, I fucking wish I finished it now and passed the bar because I could just take over the work and do the work and roll it out and, preserve his upstanding reputation and quality of work. But things are like really crazy with that right now. And, not a lot of people of course I have a state attorney, but not a lot of people have seen the situation because most people have retired before they, pass on to the other side of heaven. But that unfortunately wasn't the case with him. I always knew he wouldn't retire, and he didn't. So, oh, wow. Yeah. Muck Boys, back me up here. Hey, Muck Boys, how are you? He says, I've actually done an estate tax return for New York. They are pains. Oh, my God. No doubt. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your empathy. And you guys have been so kind ever since that happened, because there was just such a huge loss. And sometimes I wake up in the morning and it's all feels 10 times more painful than it has yet. And I don't even know how that happens, but it was such a great loss. Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate that. And sometimes I wish I did finish that, but it's just not what I did. So there is a GoFundMe for our friend of the channel, friend of the true crime community, and moderator for this channel, Gregory Worth. His daughter, Lauren, is very sick, very, very sick with a very advanced form of cancer. Jody has a link for a GoFundMe. And can you put that up, Jody? And I'm going to be putting it up, in different places on the channel. But if any of you know Edward, or if you just feel, I'm sorry, Edward, I was just looking at your name I'm so sorry, Edward. If any of you know Gregory, or if you just feel moved to donate, please do. I encourage you to do so. He is such a wonderful person. He's just, I don't know, I connected with him immediately. He's such a great person. He's come up on panel. He's often in chat. I know most of you guys know him. He needs our support right now, and we have to help one another when we need each other. So I just ask that if you can support him, please do. And tomorrow I'm going to be making a donation. I get my YouTube revenue comes in on the 21st. So a portion of that will go to him for sure. I just can't do it today, but I'll be doing it tomorrow. Or if it doesn't come through, because tomorrow's Saturday, it'll be Monday. But I will be, certainly proud to tell you what that amount is and show you a receipt, so to speak, of that, because I want to help Gregory. And I hope if any of you ever really need help, we can use this platform to help you too. So yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Oh, Honey Bun says, Gregory and the family, they're all missing work to be with Lauren. Oh God, I know. When Kesha told me about that, I just cried and cried and cried. John McSmith, Gregory Worth, I think you know him. He's the moderator for this channel. He's been in the community for a long time. He's just an amazing person. Just a great guy. I mean, I talk to him offline all the time. He's just a freaking amazing human being. It's his daughter, Lauren, who is young. Do you guys know how old she is? I can't remember exactly her age. She's young, though. And she has the kind of cancer that nobody should ever have to deal with, especially at her age. So we want to support him. And if there's a link that I think will be going up, and if for some reason it's not going up tonight, hey, at least you know about it. And when you do see it, you can decide, if you can, and it is even a decision you can make, if you'd like to support Gregory and the struggle his family is going through. So, it's such a hard situation, in the United States. I don't know how it is in other countries. Sometimes if certain kinds of jobs, if you have to take time off to take care of yourself or your family members, you just don't get compensated. And then how do you live, So, yeah. All right. So again, oh God. Yeah, I know. Thank you for all the well wishes. We will definitely pass them on to him. I'm trying to post some of them, but yeah. Okay. So recovering from that. Yeah, we're just gonna do everything in the spirit. This is all for Gregory and Lauren, and we, want to give him as much strength as possible. Okay. So again, what we are doing is, because that part 2 is still cooking and it's on its way there, but how late can I actually start this thing? We'll premiere that tomorrow at 7 p.m. Is that okay for my Australian moderators? I'm so sorry. Because is that okay? I'm going to send you, hold it. Give me just 1 second here. Let me just make sure that's okay. Kez is 7 tomorrow. Okay, you can whatever text me or put it up here. I don't know what time that is for you guys. We'll do that 7 p.m. tomorrow, the entire part 2. And then Kathleen McKenna-Hudson, true crime author, is going to be on at 9, talking about her inside scoop in the Watts case and also the Corey Richards case with the upcoming trial. I think it's going to get really interesting. She's already published a book called Dream House, and she really does have the inside scoop. All kinds of people are contacting her, and she's getting a lot of attention for the work she's done on that because she is amazing. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to just take a look at some of the as I was moving my way along to like getting this right. I can't even tell you how many times I revised the content in this because I just wanted to make it, I just wanted to include the most powerful, relevant stuff that made the connections for y'all to understand how corrupt this investigation and failure of prosecution was, and the role, potentially, allegedly, theoretically, all those words I got to say, right? Thank you, Kaz. I appreciate it. You're awesome. Thank you, guys. Yes, it'll be 7 p.m. tomorrow for the full part 2, followed by the 9 p.m. live stream with Kathleen McKenna-Hudson. I want to show you how we know that there's somebody else out there that should be held accountable for criminal elements that contributed to this horrible crime that took the lives of pregnant Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. So we're looking at some of the work that I did and then I scrapped, and then you're going to see little parts of it that are going to actually be in the part 2 tomorrow. Don't get impatient with it. But as we go along, I'm going to explain to you why each of these little sections is significant. Sound good? Makes sense? I hope so, because here we go. You bring into the stream. And John, I hope you're doing good too. How are you doing, John? Let's see here. And to all of you, I hope you're doing great. Here's our girl. How it all went down. The details and the facts. I feel like I cut off a statement I was making there. Go back. It won't. There we go. Okay.
He labels Nicole Kessinger a Jezebel who destroyed his life. Watts told him that Kessinger gave him an ultimatum on the night of the murders. It's your family or me.
There's never been any doubt about that. This video is going to tell you about how it all went down, the details and the facts.
Woman who had an affair with Chris Watts told our partners at the Denver Post that she hardly knew anything about Shanann and that she had only recently started a relationship with Chris. Well, there is now evidence to suggest that she knew about Shanann almost a year before the murders.
Nicole later talked to police.
And then one day he told me that he had 2 kids. I was like, that's pretty cool. And started telling me about his kids.
That sounded like a sarcastic comment.
No, I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, oh, he's a dad. It was like right around Father's Day, too.
She learned he was married, even though she says he didn't wear a wedding ring. The other woman claims she met Watts in June. She says she thought Watts was at the end of his divorce proceedings.
I didn't know his significant other's name for a while. And then I think he told me his kids' names pretty quick.
This one is Chris Watts. Chris Watts.
But police had found her internet searches from the year before. Kessinger searched the name Shanann Watts in September of 2017.
I didn't know his significant other's name for a while.
Am I in trouble because I related to sex?
You're not in trouble. Is it criminal? No.
Well, in Colorado, destruction of evidence is a felony.
Is there concern that you're hiding something? Potentially.
I'm worried about this white girl. She's so little. She's pregnant.
I just have to read this comment because Bingo, Muck Boys, bingo. Muck Boys has been paying attention. Muck Boy says, if it was just an ultimatum, then I wouldn't blame her at all. But most don't believe it stopped there. Ding, 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 ding. And for what I believe is the first time, we're going to go further into why it is more than an ultimatum with evidence, proof, receipts to back it up, allegedly. But for real.
It's like, where's their mom?
Say hi. Say hi. Cece likes the camera. Say hi, Cece. Say hi. Hi. She loves the camera. I don't know if you guys saw her. And then there's Bella. Say hi. I was in a really, really, really bad place. And I got a friend request from Chris on Facebook. And I was like, oh, what the heck? I'm never going to meet him. Except
I'm having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me. And I'm glad that you're having a blast. I am so out of breath.
he's the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Nicole Kessinger turned out to have the information that I can best describe as being a bombshell.
It's hot.
Okay, so now I'm going to have to mute this because now plays a song that I have not yet purchased license for. I just realized it's going to play for a few minutes, so I'm just going to talk while it's playing. Thank you, YouTube, for changing your music rules. So the licenses that I've already purchased no longer apply. That's awesome. Thanks for the refund that I'm not getting. Anyway, I don't know if any of you have had that problem with your creators, but it's not so cool. So we're going to be looking at, just some things that District Attorney Rourke said. Of course, we're going to be holding Nicole Kessinger accountable, looking at some things that she said. We're about to sum up some of the things that we went over in that part one, picking out the very specific points that continue to become more poignant and important as we lead up to defining in greater detail than has been done before what Nicole Kessinger did that could have contributed to this crime, when she did it, and why it was significant. With the information that was learned on Sunday, we've really kind of got that wrapped up in a nice little package with a bow, and I feel 100% comfortable saying I'm not sorry for the material where I have criticized District Attorney Rourke, and I feel comfortable saying that investigation and prosecution, or rather failure to prosecute, had significant elements of corruption within it. That, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, of course, is a fact. We're also going to take a look at the end of the part two that'll be playing in its entirety tomorrow at 7 p.m. It's going to be running at the premiere, and the reason is premieres have greater protection for certain kinds of content than lives. Lives tend to have the greatest exposure, and that's really the reason why I'm doing it, okay? Plug your ears, YT. Google, you're not there, right? Let's see, I can't remember how far this goes. Doesn't matter, I can rewind if I need to. We're going to be looking at, remember that, Dr. Phil episode that, I've had on my channel for a long time. I called it the deleted episode, and people have argued with me, and it has at times been available in his selection of podcast episodes of The Devil Beside Me, the Chris Watts story, and it has at times been removed. It has at times reappeared and been edited. Trust me, I compared it all. I paid laser focused attention to this. And also a lot of the content that Dr. Phil put out a lot of, he was he had the breaking news edge on this for sure. When Chris Watts made his final confession, we'll call it, when those 3 investigators went to Dodge Correctional Facility in February of 2019. And just think for a moment about how weird that is. For those investigators to go to question somebody who's already been charged, convicted, and is no doubt spending the rest of their life in jail. I know we've already talked about it before, but seriously, think about how screwed up that is or how unusual that is. The reason I believe that is because of many of the points that I'm making throughout this video. District Attorney Rourke accepted Watts' plea deal without any conditions, which is so strange. And we're going to hear some experts talk about how you just don't do it that way and why that is. You know, we don't know who among the investigators was on board with that or not. But at the end of the day, I think it was realized that the failure to properly prosecute Chris Watts left some loopholes open that they wanted to make sure they were in control of closing, or else there could be perhaps some legal action taken that would have given people who were involved in this crime some wiggle room to be free. Oh, the link is too big for you to drop. Okay. So the link for Gregory Worth's GoFundMe, I'm going to be putting, right after this, I'm going to be putting it up on my community page. I'll find other ways to get it to you. I'll email it out, and we'll do whatever we can to get that out to him, okay? So thank you for letting me know, because I appreciate that. All right, so let me just bring the video back into what we're doing here. Before moving forward into the part 2 content of this video series, let's first do a recap of what was discussed in part 1. The most important question that we asked, and we're hoping could possibly be answered, can be bounced over to District Attorney Rourke. Hey, Rourke, what's up with this statement?
Nicole Kessinger turned out to have information that I can best describe as being a bombshell.
District Attorney Rourke, I call your bluff. So we established through a conversation between Kevin Kobach and Stacey Galbraith and CBI's Tammy Lee that Nicole Kessinger was not, in fact, an eyewitness. That was not the bombshell evidence.
I had to write a letter yesterday for Weld County to approve to pay for her treatment. Oh. And then it's got to go through a board because it's kind of unusual. Yeah. Since she's not an eyewitness.
So we did learn that part of Nicole Kessinger's victim package that she received from the state was free therapy for victims of crimes. And I didn't even need to tell you this. The discovery makes it pretty clear, but it was on the first day that the FBI interviewed Nicole Kessinger, 2 days after the murders of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico, did the FBI declare that she would be protected. Her identity would be protected. She was a protected witness. It's right here. Before interviewing her, before interrogating her, before checking out her alibi or vetting her, the FBI declared her protected from day one. In addition to District Attorney Rourke declaring that Nicole Kessinger had what he could best describe as being bombshell evidence, he also described how she came to law enforcement and what it was she had to offer. We found this to be really curious because what he said does not align with any of the facts as we well know them to be.
Law enforcement got a phone call from a woman named Nicole Kessinger. She said that she had information and was offering to be interviewed as part of this investigation to offer up to investigators what she knew.
But of course, District Attorney Rourke, that silly guy, he doesn't always tell it exactly like it is. So it's more like this. Nicole Kessinger came forward because Anadarko's Tony Husky, the supervisor for the division that she and Chris Watts worked for, found emails between Nicole Kessinger and Chris Watts from June 12th, 2018 that indicated to him that they might have a little romance brewing. When she found that out, of course she had to go to law enforcement because they were going to come to her if she didn't get to them first. And she certainly didn't share with law enforcement what she knew, just like that, easy breezy, because over the course of these several hours, almost 10 hours that law enforcement interviewed Nicole Kessinger, she changed her story on every material fact or point several times. And also, as we know, she deleted everything, all correspondence and anything having to do with herself and Chris Watts from her cell phone. And she also tried to bust her SIM card. So no, District Attorney Rourke, Nicole Kessinger was not forthcoming. Let's just be clear about that.
What did that cause you to do with your phone, though?
Oh, what? When I deleted those? Yeah. I was just kind of grossed out by him, to be honest with you. I removed it.
So you already said, but you removed text messages?
I deleted all of his stuff. It was the hurt that made me delete it. And then it was the lie that made me start questioning everything else he'd been telling me for the last few days.
And that's when you decided to come forward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was interviewed on multiple occasions. I believe that for the most part, she was forthcoming in the course of those investigations.
This man, this district attorney, this champion of justice is clearly all over the place. He changes his story nearly as much as Nicole Kessinger does, and we have to ask why that is. Well, in the part one, we went over all of the things that District Attorney Rourke knew during the time of this investigation about Nicole Kessinger and everything else. We went over things that he knew when he decided, it is time to accept Chris Watts' plea deal and just get this whole thing over with. And the things that he knew raise some serious concerns. Because all of this information is critical. Number one, Kessinger was treated as a witness from day one. Number two, the FBI protected her from day one. Number three, Rourke mischaracterized her reason for coming forward. Number four, Rourke over-exaggerated the value of her statements in helping the investigation and ultimately solving this crime. Number five, Rourke said himself that she hampered the investigation and that she was forthcoming for the most part. And finally, Rourke was aware of incriminating evidence that would show that Nicole Kessinger had guilty knowledge of this horrible crime and possibly more. Rourke was also aware of how the evidence in this case was handled, what evidence was collected, how it was processed, if it was processed or analyzed at all. He also was aware of the direction the investigation was heading in had he not accepted the plea deal from Chris Watts. We are left with these central questions. Why did District Attorney Rourke accept a plea deal from Chris Watts, putting no conditions whatsoever on that plea deal? Why did District Attorney Rourke and law enforcement protect Nicole Kessinger? Why was there a need to protect Chris Watts' mistress, and how did protecting her benefit law enforcement or District Attorney's office? Since we know by Nicole Kessinger's own admission and District Attorney Rourke's statements, she did in fact break laws. She deleted evidence, she destroyed evidence, she obstructed justice. What was the full extent of her knowledge or involvement before, during, or after these horrific crimes? And since we know that she did commit offenses, why were serious, chargeable offenses completely ignored? Here's the girl. Now, you know what I'm going to do at this point? I'm going to break over to just a little excerpt that was from the part one, because I want to highlight the timing of the plea deal that District Attorney Rourke accepted. And because of you guys, through talking with you in chat when I was playing this, I've actually learned even more that's really effed up about all of this. So I'm just going to bring another piece into the stream, and we'll go from there. Oh, see, this is fun. I can explain all this, giving all of us more information. This is good. See, bonus content. Woo woo. I like bonus content. Doesn't everyone like to feel like they're getting the bonus content? But really, I think it is. So here, District, is so unattractive in your soul. All right. Interviews with law enforcement, all throughout. And I hope she's still contending with it today in her conscience. After all, as I know that y'all know, this was an absolutely horrific, egregious, unthinkable case that deserved the most earnest, hardworking investigation and investigators, and nothing but the truth from anybody who could provide a truth that might allow investigators, the families of the victims, and the world to better understand this heinous crime.
My name is Michael J. Rourke. I'm the district attorney here in Weld County, Colorado. I was the lead prosecutor on the Christopher Watts case.
And if you truly want complete justice for the victims of this case, then right here, my friend, is one of our biggest problems. And although District Attorney Rourke might not lie as much as Nicole Kessinger as it relates to this case, in fact, he certainly doesn't. I mean, she's got the record hands down on that. He does tell lies to the public, to the people that he's supposed to be serving, and the people around the world who are terrorized by this case. Oop. Oh, yeah, I had a little audio oopsie, and then the video is going to stick here, but the words are what you need to hear. Oopsie doopsie, oopsie, oopsie, oopsie. He tells blatant lies about what he knows about Nicole Kessinger's part in this crime, about what she knew, about what perhaps she did. Clearly, this was an attempt to just keep everyone happy so he could get his conviction, but not try or even begin to actually investigate the case, to do the work. But maybe there are also more sinister reasons for his lies. Maybe, and there are.
I'm the district attorney here in Weld County, Colorado. I was the lead prosecutor on the Christopher Watts case. Nicole Kessinger turned out to have information that I can best describe as being a bombshell.
Let's take a quick look at what it is we know that District Attorney Rourke knows about Nicole Kessinger and her role in the investigation and her role in Chris Watts' life during the time that was being investigated, which was prior to and contemporaneous to the murders of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico.
The girlfriend you referenced in court, can you give us a better idea of her role in the investigation, how forthcoming she was, and how she helped?
She originally came forward and spoke to investigators on her own volition. Prior to the time, unfortunately, that she came in and spoke with investigators, she had deleted all of the information off of her phone that had any connection between her and Chris Watts. That hampered the investigation. That hampered our ability to get that electronic digital connection between the two. She was interviewed on multiple occasions. I believe that for the most part, she was forthcoming in the course of those investigations.
What did that cause you to do with your phone, though?
Oh, what? When I deleted those? I was just kind of grossed out by him, to be honest with you. I was just like, I don't know what's going on right now, but you just lied to me, and I don't want to see this come over my phone anymore. So I removed it.
So you already said, but you removed text messages?
I deleted all of his stuff because he lied to me. I mean, that's what it was. It was the hurt that made me delete it. And then it was the lie that made me start questioning everything else he'd been telling me for the last few days.
And that's
I just want to say really quickly, I want to read this comment from Sherry and then tell you a little something inside. Sherry says, I hope Chris will say what really happened. Well, you know, Nancy N, who's been like, you always talk about Nancy. I love my Nancy. Right now, Kes, Chick, and Jody are head moderators of the channel. Jody is cool, our head moderators of the channel. Thank you guys so much for everything you do and for all of the moderators. Just so happened that I roped them in real tight. and then Nancy, because she's just always, she's been such a support to me ever since I started this channel. I think she and Joan and a couple other people were my very first moderators. Anyway, I tell her everything. So I told her everything about what was learned on Sunday. You know, and a couple other people I told little more bits and pieces. True crime author Kathleen McKinney-Hudson, I got to consult with her too. And a couple other of you, like you guys I just mentioned, I would totally tell. I just haven't had a time of day to get on board with that. So she was like, I think that you need to write Chris Watts and tell him what you found out and see like what the reaction is if it opens like up a door for him. And I am seriously considering doing that, but I don't know. I haven't committed to it, but I might. And if I do, I'll probably tell you, unless I think about it and realize there's a reason that I shouldn't, and then see what happened. But after she said that, I was like, oh, Nancy, at first. I was like, you know what? Yeah, if he knows that somebody knows that, I wonder if it would budge him at all. And I know that sounds like a riddle and a rhyme right now. It'll make more sense to you eventually, but for some reason, I just felt compelled to say that. Anyway, Nancy, don't fuck with Nancy.
You decided to come forward.
Yes.
Okay. So just for context,
Yes.
when people delete stuff off phones, usually we go,
No. It wasn't
and that's why I wanted
malicious at all. It wasn't malicious at all. He lied to me. It just hurt. Like, I had never felt like he'd ever lied to me before. And it was a big lie. I mean, telling somebody that you're in the midst of a divorce and then you have a wife that has a 15-week-old baby.
Oops, sorry. I was trying to get to the chat here. So I was trying to say thank you, Wise Guy True Crime. Sorry, I'm not reading your name right now. For the flowers. I appreciate it. I was trying to highlight you in chat and respond, but I don't know. The screen's too big here.
On the way is a huge thing. And I was very taken back. It was hurt. And so at that point, I deleted it. I had a few more quick things to say to him. And then I just got rid of him. That's literally what I did. I just cut him out of my life. It would have honestly been like a bad breakup kind of thing. Like, if none of this other stuff would have happened, that's what it would have been. That would have been the end of it.
The information was not destroyed because there was any.
I just love how she said, every time I hear, if none of this other stuff had happened, it just would have been a bad breakup. Like, we can just dismiss the quadruple homicide and it just would have been a bad breakup. Seriously? Now, like I pointed out in the live stream on Sunday, that perhaps was premature to try to talk about the information that was new to me. But again, I did it because I wanted to bring you guys into the live action. And that's what I would like. I like to be able to do that without, having to worry about legalities and stuff. But that's just not the real world we live in. I can tell you right now that what District Rourke is saying right now, how he is baiting her and spoon feeding her through that. So let's just go over this again. The reason that you deleted those messages was because, and then she says something stupid. And he's like, so, and then he tries to keep her on track. He did this for her benefit. And sometime soon that will make more sense to you. So just roll that around in your super smart head.
Anything in there that would be harmful to you or potentially to Chris at this point, but harmful to you in particular. That's not why you did it.
No.
You did it out of, excuse my language, this guy's an asshole, so I'm getting rid of him and I'm getting this stuff off my phone.
That was like me kicking him out of my life.
Okay.
And then, like I said, and then realizing that he lied, that was when I was like, okay, maybe his family is in danger and they're not coming back and they're not staying with a friend.
Okay, so I've spoken about this in a number of other videos, so I don't want to belabor the point, although it is a critical point as we are looking at the career of District Attorney Rourke, his actions as it is concerned with the Chris Watts case and the murders of Shanann, Bella Celeste, and baby Nico, and also as far as the way that he characterizes Miss Nicole Kessinger. He uses interesting words here, such as hampers the investigation, saying rather than, she obstructs the investigation, which is a felony in Colorado, as is destruction of evidence, which we all know is a crime that Nicole Kessinger committed, as she even says so herself. It's important to know that the entire reason Nicole Kessinger gave law enforcement for deleting Chris Watts' messages and anything else having to do with him off of her phone is a complete lie. The reason that she gives them is that she did not know that Chris Watts' wife, Shanann, was pregnant. And it wasn't until Tuesday morning, the day after the murders, when she was reading the newspaper, did she find that out. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. Time again on this channel, as have other people. Oh my God. I just lost track of myself. I hopped over to that part one. I was reading chat and I just kept it going and I forgot to make the point. Jesus Christ, Kelly. All right. We're going back here a little bit. All right. I'm sorry, guys.
You had deleted all of the information off of her.
Lied to me. And I don't want to
Whoop, 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 whoop. Wait a minute. Yo, slow down, YouTube. You're biting. Don't bite me like that. Stop it. Stop it. So nasty, YouTube.
See this come over my phone anymore.
Not saying this
Malicious at all.
to you or
Hampers the channel, as have other. Was dating Chris Watts. Investigator Prill's summary. We hadn't gotten there yet. I'm sorry. Hampers the investigation. I don't know where were we?
And then, like I said, and then realizing that he lied, that was when I was like, okay, maybe his family is in danger and they're not coming back and they're not staying with a friend.
Okay, so I've spoken about this in a number of other videos, so I don't want to belabor the point, although it is. I remember saying the reason that she gives them is that she did not know that Chris Watts' wife, Shanann, was pregnant. And it wasn't until Tuesday morning, the day after the murders, when she was reading the newspaper, did she find that out. I have proven time and time again on this channel, as have other people, that the fact that Nicole Kessinger did not know Shanann was pregnant prior to that Tuesday, the day after the murders, is a complete and unequivocal lie. It's just as important to know that District Attorney Rourke also must have known that the reason Nicole Kessinger gave law enforcement for deleting all of Chris Watts' information off of her phone, including call records and text messages, he also knows that's total BS, total lie. Through the course of the investigation, as it outlines in the discovery, there are several times during the time period while Nicole Kessinger was dating Chris Watts, before and after, that Nicole Kessinger Googled the name Shanann Watts, which would have brought her to Shanann Watts' Facebook page, where Shanann Watts, during the course of her pregnancy, talked many, many, many times about how excited she was to be pregnant and posted about the baby Watts to be in her belly at that moment. And District Attorney Rourke saw all of that. What else did District Attorney Rourke know about Nicole Kessinger? Okay, so here coming up, and I talked about this the other day, and I'm bringing it up again. You're maybe already heard this, but if it has not dawned on you the significance of what is about to be discussed here, let's really figure this out together, because it's time to put this together and understand why it was prosecutorial decisions were made poorly, in my opinion. There are very clear reasons behind them. And then the reasons that fuel, there's deeper reasons that even fuel the kind of surface reasons that are purely for the protection of covering prosecutors and investigators, but after, for some reason, they knowingly covered Nicole Kessinger's butt from what could have been very serious criminal charges as it relates to this case. Well, District Attorney Rourke knew about the information contained within Investigator Prill's summary in the discovery that precedes the official discovery timeline of the phone data extraction, omitting some important things, but we'll talk about that later. It says, during my review of the data extracted from the phones belonging to Chris Watts, Shanann Watts, and Nicole Kessinger, certain information was learned. Agent Darren Ford conducted logical extractions of the data from the phones. In conversations with Ford, he advised that the Northern Colorado Forensic Laboratory does not possess technology to perform the physical data extractions from Apple devices. Thus, so although they did a forensic download of Chris Watts' phone, Detective Prill, who I believe, in addition to Dave Baumhover, was one of the possibly only those two who were on to Nicole Kessinger and were willing to investigate this case honestly, and were hoping to uncover any crimes she may have committed, just like they would anyone else. So why was it only the two of them and not everybody? So he's saying here that they did not have the equipment necessary to, unlock certain, vaults within Chris Watts' phone. One of my buddies is doing something really weird. I gotta go check him in a minute. So, let's keep listening. Are you okay, Krusty? His name's Krusty, okay? Don't pick on him. His name is just Krusty. He's like got like crusty nose a lot. We call him Krusty. I know it's not very nice. Here we go. The extracted data is not inclusive of all data stored amongst the assorted applications within a given device, nor does activity involving those applications necessarily reflect in the data extracted. For example, Watts had a secret calculator application uploaded to his phone. This application, by all appearances, is an operable calculator, but when users enter a secret passcode, the application reveals its true purpose: a concealed storage device for photographs, videos, contacts, even a private browser. In mid-July 2018, Watts began transferring images from his camera application into the secret application. This activity is not reflected within the phone's timeline. Locating those transferred images proved challenging as it was predicated on mere curiosity. I searched through the images stored within the data. What he's saying is when they did that for Watts' phone, finding those images that existed within that secret calculator app, it was not a natural part of the forensic download due to, he stated, technology is always changing. Apple's trying to always stay on top of things and ahead of the game. They did not have what was needed to access those storage vaults within an iPhone. So he came upon the secret calculator contents. Ugh, as gross as it must have been. Yuck. I just can't stand thinking of either Chris Watts or Nicole Kessinger in a sexualized way. Just makes me yuck. That was just due to his own, like vigor and enthusiasm in the investigation. He said it was predicated on pure curiosity. He just came across it because he was really looking into things and trying to figure out what the hell. Something doesn't seem right. What's going on here? Files featured in the Celebrate report. Locating an image not highlighted in the timeline, I reviewed the path within the file information and noticed it included the words secret calculator. Using the find feature, I searched the 12,000 images stored in the phone's memory using the keyword secret calculator. I located a vast collection of images otherwise undetected during my review that are stored within this application. In the near future, a follow-up warrant will be sought. This is important, to manually search through this phone and access the secret calculator. That search will include any additional photographs or videos, any browser activity, and information related to this installation date. The last sentence in this report says, investigation continues. Please forward to the district attorney's office. End of report. So you want to know what the date for this report generated by Michael Prill was? It was October 30th, 2018, October 30th. So when was the plea deal made? It was made on November 6th. I created a whole timeline of the process of the plea deal according to both the prosecution and the defense. And it is very clear that there was a lot of resistance to even having that possibility, or there was like some game playing until right around this time. You want to know when District Attorney Rourke went to see the Rourke family in North Carolina and stayed there for 3 days in their house? He left the day after this report was generated. This report was generated on October 30th. You better believe it ended up on the district attorney's desk on October 30th. Because as Michael Prill stated, he planned to seek another search warrant, execute that search warrant, and the last sentence, as he wrote, The investigation continues. On October 30th, 2018, the Spirit was among those who were actually seeking the truth. The investigation continues. We have so much more to do. So one may say, oh, that's so curious timing that this report was generated saying, you know what? We're going to dig deeper into Chris Watts' phone. And you know what? If they were digging deeper into Chris Watts' phone, there's a very good chance that they would have gone back and saw a search warrant to dig deeper into the other phones, including Nicole Kessinger's. But even if they didn't, we can logically deduce that what would be found in Chris Watts' phone in those hidden storage vaults would be directly connected to Nicole Kessinger. What else would be in there? I mean, maybe at the time, they weren't sure, but in retrospect now, knowing what we know what was in there, and probably the only thing that was in there. So to me, it's pretty clear with this timing that this report came out. It was really the only thing in the discovery report that said, I have definitively discovered something that needs to be investigated further that we have not yet touched, and we do not have permission to access given the existing search warrants. And hey, here's what we're going to do next in order to go there. This was definitive. It was a statement of action and commitment to finding truth in this case. The next day, District Attorney Rourke took off with his underling to visit the Rourkes, and in my opinion, to convince them into accepting a plea deal that would mean no death penalty. At the end of the part 2 in its entirety, which is 90% done cooking now, that we'll be watching tomorrow night at 7, I end with one of those former clips. Oh, I was talking about this earlier. I don't think I closed the loop on it. I'm so sorry. Of when Dr. Phil did the interviews with the Rourke family and their attorneys. He did a series of them. There was actually a lot of footage right after Chris Watts made his so-called, final confession in February of 2019. And I don't know if you guys remember this footage or not, or if you've ever seen it, but what those attorneys have to say, if you haven't seen it yet, just might blow your mind. I don't want to give it all away now because that's literally how the video ends, because it's the point at where I'm going to, in the next part, we're going to start tying things together that I think, for anyone that believes me, it's going to be pretty shocking. But we need to pay attention to this right here. Okay. I'm going to go back to the rough drafts of the part 2 material that I paused so we could listen to that about Prill's report and the timing. What do you guys think about that? Leave a comment in chat, please. I'd really love to hear you guys respond to that. Yeah. No. I'm sorry. I'm showing the live stream here in a different time earlier on. Okay, stop. And then present and share and share. Part 2 preview draft. All right. Here's where things get tricky. To answer all of those questions, especially together, you can't really find an answer that makes sense. You can come up with things like, obviously people didn't really want to know what happened. People didn't want to know if there was Here's the questions. I'm just going to read through them. Why did the district attorney accept the plea deal with no conditions? Why was there a need to protect the mistress? Inquiring minds want to know. Scoot forward, little baby. Oops. What was the full extent of her knowledge or involvement before, during, or after the crime? Why were serious chargeable offenses ignored? As it relates to Nicole Kessinger. and what ultimately was the truth of her involvement. Okay, so those were the questions. And now here we go. Oopsie. Here's where things get tricky. To answer all of those questions, especially together, you can't really find an answer that makes sense. You can come up with things like, well, obviously people didn't really want to know what happened. People didn't want to know if there was more than one person involved in this horrible crime, or they just didn't really care to know the whole story at all. They figured, no one was really going to be interested. The families weren't going to care. The lives didn't matter. So they just weren't really going to look into it too deeply, right? And that doesn't make any sense. That's absurd, right? If you've been following this case at all, it's likely that you've heard Tammy Lee's statement about, we had so much more work to do. It felt so weird.
We didn't examine all the evidence. We didn't interview every witness we needed to. We didn't do all of these things that you would do in a normal investigation because he stopped the clock.
Case of a missing mother and her 2 young daughters. Their father pleading for their safe return, but this morning, he's the one in custody.
And all of a sudden, I receive a phone call from Detective Baumover. And he said, hey, Chris is going to plead guilty to all charges.
Christopher Watts has pleaded guilty to killing his pregnant wife, Shanann, and 2 young daughters, Bella and Celeste, and their unborn son, Nico.
Whoa, wait, we're not done. We have all these things to do. We were relieved that it was going to be over, but at the same time, we felt like, in a sense, we didn't finish.
The only way they could have left is in your truck. The only way they could have left is in your truck.
Nicole Kessinger turned out to have information that I can best describe as being a bombshell.
Initially, you drew concern from me when you told me you deleted everything from Chris. I've already told you that. You understand why. There's no question as to why that might cause concern. So,
okay, my friend. So there you heard Tammy Lee telling Chris Watts that she knows that Bella, Celeste, and his wife Shanann left their home in his work truck, and they were missing at the time. He hadn't confessed at all yet. And then we have DA Rourke describing the information Nicole Kessinger gave law enforcement as being bombshell information. And then we have CBI's agent Kevin Kobach talking to Miss Kessinger and saying, initially you drew concern for me when you deleted all of your text messages between yourself and Chris Watts, and there's no question as to why that is. So what have we established? We have established that investigators know that Chris's missing family left the home in his work truck, that Miss Kessinger is a big part of this investigation, according to DA Rourke, bombshell information. And then we have the multiple interviews with Nicole Kessinger and Kevin Kobach, in which she repeatedly lies about why she deleted her messages, the text messages between herself and Chris Watts, and any information that relates to Chris Watts on her phone. Kobach comes straight out and tells her, you're shady. Considering investigators know that Miss Kessinger knows so much that she had such an intimate and close relationship with Chris Watts right up until the day his family went missing. And they also know that she has been dishonest, that she destroyed evidence in this case, this triple plus homicide case. And these investigators, they don't really know what part she may have played leading up to, during the murders, or in the attempted cover-up of the murders. They also know that Chris Watts' work truck played a pivotal part in this crime. Don't you think they would want to know exactly who was in that truck, and particularly if Miss Kessinger was in that truck with Chris Watts? And even if they were going to protect her, even if they didn't care if Kessinger was in that truck with Chris Watts, don't you think that they would want to corroborate
his confession and prove scientifically with scientific evidence that his confession was true, that the body of his deceased wife and his alive children were in the back of his work truck on that drive from Saratoga Trail to Survey 319. Wouldn't you think they would want to know that if they had the evidence right at their fingertips? There are many short.
Now here I'm going to go over the evidence that was collected in the work truck that was not analyzed. And when we watch the part 2 in its entirety tomorrow at 7 p.m. premiere wise, before the 9 p.m. live stream with true crime author Kathleen McKenna-Houston, this is totally different because, at this point, we've already talked about this a lot, and I realized that. So I edited this down and then buffed up some more other different points that we haven't already talked about. But again, right now, we're just watching some of the pieces of content that I created for the part 2, and nothing was good enough because I tend to get a little obsessive compulsive when I'm trying to make a point. I get a little and I'm not saying the products I put out is perfect, but in my mind, it's perfectionism. Like I know the point I want to make. I know what I want to include. It has to be there. It has to be inserted. Blah, 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 blah. I get a little obsessed with my own brain, I guess. So we're watching some of the stuff that I either scrapped or highly edited it. Edited it. That's hard to say. Say edited it. Past tense. Not easy. Okay. So some of this you will see appearing in the part 2 in its entirety tomorrow, but it's like little bits and pieces, and most of this was scrapped or changed. And for those of you who just came in, and now we're talking about the why for everything that I included. There's a very specific reason, and it's all coming together, baby. If you don't have the patience for that, there are a lot of channels that make really good shorts, and I bet that you could go find them if you search.
Comings from an investigative standpoint in this case that I and many others find shocking, but this one I always find to be among the most stunning of them all. Let me read you part of this supplement from the discovery. It should be noted that on September 4th, 2018, while running through the evidence submission list with lab tech Patricia Lopez, several items were listed that CBI Lab ultimately did not wish to take possession of at that time. Those items are crossed out on the evidence submission form, which has been added to the case file. The refused items are as follows. I'm going to read the last 3 items. Driver's side seat cover from work truck. Trace lift from center console of Chris Watts' work truck, and trace lift from back seat driver side of Chris Watts' work truck. The items that were not taken by CBI are transported back to the Frederick Police Department and checked into evidence. Nothing further. So, my friends, what that means is the trace lifts that were taken from Chris Watts' work truck for the purpose of determining if any other occupants were in that truck. That evidence was actually collected. But CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, chose to not send that evidence to their labs to analyze the evidence to determine what DNA could be found, what hair could be found, what other evidence, trace evidence could be found that would decisively identify what, if any, occupants were in Chris Watts' work truck, and they could also determine if those occupants were alive or deceased. Now, when I've brought this issue up before, people might refute it by saying, oh, well, maybe, well, hey, right there, it says they didn't wish to take it into evidence at that time, so maybe they analyze this evidence another time. But guys, we know that's not the case because District Attorney Rourke went with the story that Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were all murdered in their home at 2825 Saratoga Trail until Tammy Lee, Dave Baumhover, and Graham Coder went to interview Chris Watts in prison after he was already serving his 5 consecutive life sentences on February 18th, 2018.
I also have to emphasize this point because, oh God, we know that Rourke did not know what he was talking about. Again, yes, like I just said, let me repeat myself. They have the story that all 3, pregnant Shanann, of course, okay, that's right, but then Bella and Celeste, their lives were taken at 2825 Saratoga Trail, and then they were all hauled off. My God, so disgusting. In his work truck 319, where their bodies were so disgustingly disposed of. But we know that's not the truth. And could be, well, I guess I've got to say, if you believe Chris Watts' last confession, and I personally believe at least what he said about Bella, that Bella was alive, and I've told you this time and time again, because his tell of telling the truth is when even the littlest glimmer of emotion shines through. The only time in any of these interviews when he gets emotional, the only time, guys, the only time, and I challenge you to show me otherwise, he is talking about Bella during that time, mostly in the ride from Survey 319 to Survey 319, and they're at Survey 319, and he gets really emotional consistently. That, my friends, is Chris Watts telling the truth. I have no doubt about it. So the investigators, knowing that truth was just a lab test or 2 away from analyzing that was already collected. The prosecutor and the investigators may have very well known that. They made a conscious decision not to do so. And District Attorney going with the story that all of them, their lives were taken at the house, and then the rest of the story, so it goes. He took that, guys, you should be fucking furious about this. He took that information that he knew he did not know if he had the whole story down, because he knew that evidence had not been properly analyzed. How could he know? The best thing he could do was make a guess, to, speculate, right? That's not what investigators and prosecutors are supposed to do when it is they and only they who have the tools, the opportunity, and the means to find the true fact. Oh, does that ring a bell? That's their job. And it's their only job. And in those jobs were not done well, or they were not done at all, or they were consciously ignored or fixed for reasons they held to be more important that had nothing to do with justice for Shanann, Nico, Bella, and Celeste. One of the outcomes of this case that should make us the most furious of all is that in taking that incorrect information to the Rourke family, for 3 days, they talked about death penalty or not. In my opinion only, he persuaded them to accept the plea deal and to not go for the death penalty. After all, he told 2 different stories of which of Shanann's parents was for or against the death penalty right after the sentencing. And then in his wife's podcast, he flip-flopped their roles. How could you forget that? And how could you get that wrong and still let your wife's podcast episode go to production? and then go live, and then drop for all the world to hear. That's not a mistake an honest attorney makes who has his eye on justice all, meaning he's doing his job, right? So again, end of the part 2 in its entirety that we will be watching together tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's New York time. It ends with, leading into what's going to be the continuation where it's getting really hot and heavy of some of that old and kind of pushed away into sunlight on it. Dr. Phil episodes with interviews with the Rourke family. I don't play that, but I do play and talk about the interview with the Rourke family attorneys, because my friends, they are very, by District Attorney Rourke doing what he did and just decided to ignore the evidence to go with the story that was not supported by evidence, the harm and hurt and damage that he caused that family is unforgivable. And for that, on behalf of that family, we should all be absolutely fucking livid, in my opinion.
Over 3 months after his sentencing, at that time, Chris Watts then gave them a more complete confession, informing them of what apparently really happened, that Shanann's life was taken at the home, and that sweet little Bella and Celeste made that car ride from Saratoga Trail to Survey 319, 45 minutes, alive, with their mother's body on the floorboard beneath their feet. And it wasn't until they arrived at Survey 319 did they take their last breaths. People who were involved in law enforcement, and they believe that this trace lift in DNA evidence would have determined if Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were in fact in that truck, if Nicole Kessinger or any other party was in fact in that truck, and if those occupants were in fact alive or deceased. So the question remains, why did CBI choose to not analyze this critical evidence that had already been collected?
Former Morris County, New Jersey prosecutor Bob Bianchi comments on the Watts case. This is from 2019. I've been looking for this clip for a really long time. I'm so happy I finally found it. Actually, it's from 2018 because I think it is poignant. Listen to what he has to say very carefully.
I do want to bring in Bob Bianchi, former prosecutor, host of Law and Crime. So this reminds me a little bit of Ted Bundy when his mom refused to believe that her son would do such a thing. Chris Watts' mom, Bob, is saying this didn't happen. He was coerced. What's your take?
Well, I mean, it's not unusual that a family member looks at somebody that they love. It does a really horrible thing. As a homicide prosecutor for many years, most of the families are in complete disbelief with regard to the fact that somebody they love committed a murder. So that's not unusual. What I do find to be unusual in this case, Susan, again, going back to my prosecutor days, is that I would have required a proffer session with the defendant where he would have sat down in order to be spared the death penalty. He would have spilled the beans on everything from A to Z. We would have known what the motive is, which we don't know right now. And he would have clearly allocated in court, got up and stated, this is what I did and why I did it. The only way he's going to get out of this, Susan, last point, is a belated assertion of innocence is not a basis to withdraw a plea. However, his lawyers didn't do any psychiatric examinations, and the mother points this out. And that could be a huge deal here because maybe he did go into a rage. Maybe there's an insanity defense or a diminished capacity defense that takes it out of murder and makes it a non-death penalty case. That would be the only sliver of a basis that he could withdraw this plea.
Well, Jean Cassars touched on this, and she said that in court they did ask him, and his statement was read saying that, yes, he admits to all of this, but the motive was not found. And I wonder if it would ever suffice, whatever motive he may have made up or done, because I can't seem to find a logical one for any of this.
Yeah, well, you rarely do in a murder case because a lot of times it's not something that we can understand. And while a prosecutor does not need to prove motive in any case, you certainly want that. In other words, to protect the file, to protect the belated assertion of innocence, I would have said to the defense attorneys, and they may have done this, but I would have demanded you come in, go fall on your sword, tell us everything A to Z so I can eliminate all these defenses of insanity, passion provocation, diminished capacity. So this way it's locked up in a box so that if you come after the plea to say, hey, I no longer want to take the deal, which happens all the time, you will not be able to get out of it because we have a very specific statement about the reasons why you did it, and we eliminated all the defenses. That did not occur here.
Bob Bianchi, thank you. Maybe it's his parents' way of kind of coping or wrapping their head around this. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And his family, his parents were asking him to do that.
Huh.
I think it's
Well, how about that? So Bob Bianchi just goes through the whole process that he would have gone through and explains why. And he talks about the importance of, you know, when you're accepting a plea deal, that you have to make sure there's evidence that supports the confession that makes up the plea deal for the reasons of the possible legal outcomes down the road. And basically, he says it so well, I included him in there. There are some other clips that I had of other people. He made the final cut too. There's some clips I had of other people explaining a similar thing, but he just said it so well. And these videos are getting really long. But basically, anybody who commented on the nature of the plea deal and District Attorney Rourke's part in it was kind of like, in a professional way, like, what the fuck? Like, why didn't he throw any conditions on that bad boy? He just, good dog, puppy, Rourke. Woof, woof. Let's hear what Rourke has to say. This is an interview with Rourke after the sentencing.
at some point he will.
No, I don't. I think he.
Ooh, I think I cut some.
That did not occur here.
Bob Bianchi, thank you. Maybe it's his parents' way of kind of coping or wrapping their head around this. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And his family, his parents were asking him to do that. Do you think at some point he will?
No, I don't. I think he heard those pleas from me, from his family.
From you, yeah, right.
Based on what I know and what we've seen in the investigation, that he will ever bring himself to tell us what happened.
Well, what do you know about that, Mr. Rourke? You and I agree on that. I don't think Chris Watts will ever bring himself to tell the world what really happened either. But here's the thing, Mr. Rourke. You were the one person who had the power and the authority to ensure that Chris Watts did fess up to what he did in some detail. So some of the many issues that accompany this case could be put to rest.
Okay, everybody needs to go hit that like. 220 people, 71 likes. Please go hit the like or dislike. If you don't like what we're doing, hit dislike. If you like, but gotta vote either way. We can't assume our neighbor's gonna do it. I always do this when I watch Guilty of Crime. Who's in the house? How you doing, girl? It's great to see you. And think for yourself and all the rest. Justice A through Z. Oh my gosh. Yeah, please go hit the like. I'll give you a second. Oh, I love Bella. She's so sweet. Okay. We like Bella.
But rather than to use your authority to seek truth and justice, you used it for other things. And then you immediately started getting questions like this, Mr. Rourke.
I know this is hypothetical, but had Chris Watts not confessed in this case, how tight was this case? I mean, was there a lot of evidence out there? Because I know that as far as the murders, there wasn't a lot.
Well,
there was a lot of.
Ouch, District Attorney Rourke. Ouch. Ouchie, ouch. The interviewer says, I know as far as the murders, there wasn't a lot of evidence. What do Rourke has to say about that?
Circumstantial evidence that really, I think, was strong evidence.
Yeah.
When law enforcement shows up right at the outset, based on this call from her friend Nicole, saying, I need you to come check on the welfare of Shanann. When her car is there, her purse is there, her cell phone is there, the house is locked up from the inside.
That's talking about law enforcement, quick response. Good job. It's not talking about evidence.
In a way that no one could lock a door and run out a garage door, for example.
What? He just goes, so in the house is locked up from the inside in a way no one could lock a door and run out the garage door, for example. What the fuck is he talking about?
No one could lock a door and run out a garage door, for example.
Seriously? Dude, you make no sense.
The key code on the garage door didn't work. There was no way for a stranger to get in there, abduct them or anything else, signal to us that it probably, at that early stage, probably was a family member, probably was the defendant.
Exactly.
But then you start to really look at the manner in which they were killed, where their bodies were dumped, his familiarity with that area. And I think there were a lot of pieces that could be put together even without him talking.
The manner in which they killed, the area where their bodies were dumped. Yet he doesn't even know where each of them was murdered. He got it completely wrong. Why? Because he failed to analyze the evidence that was already collected, made an assumption, or intentionally made up a story that's different from the truth to cover up corruption or something else in the investigation, took that to the victim's family, to the family members who lost their daughter and 2 living grandchildren and only grandson that they may ever have the opportunity to have. Or if you're Frankie, lost his sister, his 2 nieces, perhaps the only nephew he ever would have had. And he took that to that family, that half-baked theory of his, of how this all went down, and presented it to them as truth. He stayed in their house for 3 days, and in my opinion, convinced them to allow him, without any problems, to accept the plea. Chris Watts would forgo the death penalty when, as you're going to hear in tomorrow's part 2 in its entirety, the family may have thought different of had they actually known what Bella experienced that horrible early morning of August 13th, 2018. And I believe that they very sincerely mean and feel that they might have thought differently, because we can see their love for their family and their love for their grandchildren, their love for Bella. And what we know her experience to be is so beyond horrific and unthinkable and inhumane and Satan-like. It's hard to imagine that they could settle for anything, that they could be okay with settling for anything, even being the devout Christians, Catholics that they are. And what District Attorney Rourke did was he put the fix in, and he took away their right or their ability to make their own decision how they wanted to weigh in on what their family's murderer's fate should be. And that is beyond unprofessional. It's beyond irresponsible. It's reprehensible.
But it certainly made it a much stronger case, because he ultimately did give us at least a version of what he wanted us to believe.
Wait, what? Could you please say that again?
Because he ultimately did give us at least a version of what he wanted us to believe.
Yo, did you just say that his confession was helpful because ultimately he gave you a version of what he wanted you to believe? Wait, how is that helpful? He gave you, law enforcement, a version of what he wanted you to believe. And he didn't want you to believe he was a bad guy. So he gave you a version of this atrocity that it wasn't even truthful. They had no idea what actually happened.
Yeah, no, wait. So listen to his words again, and to listen how bullshit this is.
Up from the inside in a way that no one could lock a door and run out a garage door.
God. Such a piece of shit.
No one could lock a door and run out a garage door.
What are you talking about, dude?
The key code on the garage door didn't work. There was no way for a stranger to get in there, abduct them or anything else. Signal to us that it probably, at that early stage, probably was a family member, probably was the defendant. But then you start to really look at the manner in which they were killed, where their bodies were dumped, his familiarity with that area. And
Hey, wait, Rourke, I have an idea. How about looking at the evidence? Why did you look at all of that, but you just refused to look at the evidence? What? This makes no sense.
I think there were a lot of pieces that could be put together even without him talking, but it certainly made it.
There were a lot of pieces that could be put together even without him talking. He's talking in the theoretical, the hypothetical, and that matters, right? We all watch The Deception Detective and listen and understand to some degree statement analysis, and then people subconsciously use words that mean something even when they don't want you to know what it is. You know, they don't want you to know that thing, right? It's just nobody's that good. So he says there are many pieces that could be put together, not that were put together, have been put together, that we put together to create a solid picture of what happened. No, they could be put together. But you know what? We failed to do so for whatever reason. And I think I know what that reason is. And I'm very excited to be sharing it with you as soon as the path clears.
A much stronger case because he ultimately did give us at least a version of what he wanted us to believe.
He ultimately did at least give us a version of what he wanted us to believe. What the fuck is that? He ultimately did give us a version of what he wanted us to believe. Of the things that he wanted us to believe, he provided one version of that bullshit. You can say it in different terms. It would have the same meaning, just moving those words around a little bit. If you do that, you realize how full of cat poop this guy is.
Wait, what? Could you please say that again?
Because he ultimately did give us at least a version of what he wanted us to believe.
Yo, did you just say that his confession was helpful because ultimately he gave you a version of what he wanted you to believe? Wait, how is that helpful? He gave you, law enforcement, a version of what he wanted you to believe. And he didn't want you to believe he was a bad guy. So he gave you a version of this atrocity that it wasn't even truthful. They had no idea what actually happened to Shanann, Bella, or Cece at the time of Chris Watts' plea. And until at least those 3 investigators went to Dodge Correctional Facility in February of 2019 to basically do some of the investigation that was never done under this man's watch and order.
Without him talking, but it certainly made it a much stronger case because he ultimately did give us at least a version of what he wanted us to believe, even though we know all of it wasn't the truth.
I'm sorry. What the district attorney said right here is an absolute joke.
The continuation of that is, wait, we have to indulge in this. I'm sorry.
And until at least those 3 investigators went to Dodge Correctional Facility in February of 2019 to basically do some of the investigation that was never done under this man's watch and order.
Without him talking, but it certainly made it a much stronger case because he ultimately did give us at least a version of what he wanted us to believe.
He ultimately did give us at least a version of what he wanted us to believe. Oh my God.
Even though we know all of it wasn't the truth.
I'm sorry.
Even though we know all of it wasn't the truth. He did at least give us a version of what he wanted us to believe, even though we know all of it wasn't the truth. Shit. We got a version of the bullshit he wanted us to believe. And by the way, we know that his bullshit's not true. So all I'm doing is talking in circles and hoping that you're going to buy it, because if you don't, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, because I don't have any more to pull out of my ass. This guy is unbelievable. Do you guys get how ridiculous that is? I just cannot. I cannot. And look at Bella.
All right. What the district attorney said right here is an absolute joke. He says that his confession was helpful because Chris Watts gave law enforcement a version of what Chris Watts wants law enforcement to believe it's true. And then he follows it up with, Although that we know that most of that even wasn't the truth. I mean, what did he actually say there? It's just word salad to obfuscate and confuse people so they're not looking at the real issues. I'm sure of that.
Do you think he's a psychopath or sociopath? And I don't know if he was actually examined and diagnosed at any point.
If he was, I don't know. Obviously, I don't have the ability to ask for that. From a clinical standpoint, I don't know. There is certainly something wrong with a guy who annihilates his family
Obviously.
for a new love affair. There's something wrong with him.
Oh, wait a minute, Rourke.
From a
Hold
clinical
it.
or insanity.
There's nothing wrong with a man that annihilates his family. Obvious statement of the fucking decade. For what? A new love affair? Wait a minute, Rourke. I thought you said earlier we don't know what the motive is, but now you do? Which one is it? Which one is it? Do you know the motive and it's a new love affair, or do we not know the motive? Please, Mr. Rourke, tell us with some clarity. This man pisses me
Standpoint,
off.
certainly not. There were no signs of that at all. But how do you do this?
I mean, you've been a part of several big cases, but is this one at the top of your list in terms of what you'll remember?
I know. Let me answer this one. It certainly is at the top of his cases that the public will remember, that the world will remember, which makes it very important, of course, that he is triumphant in this case, as any district attorney would want to be. But I think that is only part of this DA's alleged reasoning for not properly prosecuting this horrible crime. That's how I feel about it, at least. Just two more things about what was said just in this portion of this interview. The interview is longer than what I'm sharing with you right here.
Can I pause?
One of the most ironic things about
Wait, let me see how long.
that's how I feel about it, at least.
I feel like I don't know. I want to see what you're getting at here. Hi, Justice, by the way. Did I say hi to you yet? I'm not sure. So 2:53. Oh, that was like 5 minutes ago. I'm not sure if I can find it now again, but let's talk about it. We'll find it and examine it. Because I don't know if I'll be able to hit it, trying to go back, accounting for the time I was talking and all that.
Just two more things about what was said just in this portion of this interview. The interview is longer than what I'm sharing with you right here. But one of the most ironic things about what is discussed here is that District Attorney Rourke wouldn't know the answer to the primary question the interviewer has.
I mean, was there a lot of evidence out there? Because I know that the murders.
Check that out, Justice.
And the reason he would not know if there was a lot of evidence is because, well, watch this video that's in the description and in the cards here. It's about Chris Watts' work truck. We discussed it recently in a live stream on this channel.
I already went over it with this. Remember, this was part of my edited stuff here. Let's see what I see. So we go through that. Thank you so much, Canadian Blue, for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. Thank you so very much for your support. Love your little picture there too. Oh, bluebird, so cute. Thank you so much.
Would have told investigators definitively if his family members were ever definitively know. Circle.
Gone astray from the flock and have fallen studying the Bible together.
Over all that. So there's just that was some of my work in progress. Again, when you watch the part 2, well, the first part of it, because as I told you, I got it split into 2. We're just going to keep splitting things up into smaller pieces until we never reach the end. No, that's not going to happen. You are going to see like some of that in there, but I couched it differently, whittled it down because there's so much more in that part 2 that is now. Oh man, good thing we didn't wait for it. It's 1 a.m. here and it is 92% downloaded. Woo, woo. It will be ready in time for tomorrow night. Oh my God. So sorry, guys. Oh, I just do it because I want to give you guys the best. And also because, legal stuff, maybe. Now that, yeah. That's all. So how long have we been going? All right, I'm going to drop the link. If we are at 1:41, I do not want to go longer than 2 hours. I need to get some sleep. And so do you guys. I am going to drop the link. If anyone wants to come up here and say something about any of this, I will just give you the floor. Here it is. Link to panel. Don't be shy. Be mad, man. You should be mad. Are you guys mad? What's that channel, that podcast, Big Mad True Crime? I freaking love that podcast. If you guys aren't familiar with that, she's been around for a while. Can't remember the woman's name, but I've been listening to that forever, since before this channel started. I just love her. Big Mad True Crime. Great podcast. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Big Mad. Let's be big mad. I am big mad. I hate injustice. Absolutely. We better hate injustice. Thank you. I'm glad to hear somebody is standing up for hating injustice. Seriously. I don't know how people don't become furious about this stuff. Kes says, you've all been so respectful in chat. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate that. You know, and if you weren't here earlier when I was saying, you know, please be nice to the moderators. They're moderating like super tight because they have to. Most of you know that just talking about this case is a little dangerous as far as, you know, wanting to grow your channel on YouTube goes. I've been trying to navigate this for the past few years, and things are getting deep. They've gotten a little deep before, but things are deeper now than they ever have been. So the moderators are just looking out by making sure that, you know, that the channel's safe. And I mean, my God, I appreciate it. I literally couldn't do it without them. So thank you so much, guys. Let's see. Bebe? Porters? Blah, blah. Did I say that right? Man, I'm never going to be able to have an empanada now. I'm sorry about that. But there's other delightful foods. There's other delightful Mexican foods even that you can have. Maybe sometime we will have like a Mexican fiesta cooking party, and we will make foods other than empanadas to replace that which we can no longer eat. Leave Jim alone. Leave Jim alone. I don't know. With the information that, the big information from this past Sunday, it implicates the mistress in some very, very serious things. It also affirms this kind of knowing many people have had, but haven't been able to pinpoint it, of corruption existing in the investigation and failure of prosecution of this case. And there are some unknowns, some unknown factors, players, situations that have to exist, but we cannot pinpoint precisely at this time. And gosh, I almost was like gonna make a conscious decision not to say it, but I'll come out and say it. Is this why Chris Watts' mistress wanted so badly for investigators to leave him alone? Leave him alone. Shit doesn't have to get ripped up in this. Leave him alone. Because it was obviously something she felt very strongly about that prompted that weird expression of mental instability, to say the least, and fear. Yeah. Shanann is much prettier than Nicole Kessinger. Yes. Yes, I agree. Oh, the funny guy says, I'm mad in Switzerland, even though I am from Illinois originally. Well, I'm glad you're mad in Switzerland, because you should be mad in Switzerland. And Switzerland is historically a very not mad country. Isn't that right? Isn't Switzerland always neutral? Cynthia says, I've always been sensitive to injustice. That's a great thing. It really is. It's more people need to be just that. I don't know. We, in this inquiry into what really happened, with complete justice for the victims being the goal, that's really what it is. And man, what happened to Shanann and her children, the injustice that happened to her and to her family just makes me sick, as is true with so many people that are connected to this channel. We just love and adore the Rourke family and have so much compassion and care for them. And I just wish that they could see that and feel that. It's unfortunate that, people and channel creators that claim to be friends of theirs point them in the direction of all of this horrible, bad energy towards them and towards their family that doesn't really exist. It's just such a hateful, selfish thing to do to people that you dare to call your friend. And, I just hope that the harm that those people cause that family, I just hope that it's not too deep, and that as it passes, they heal, and that eventually they are no longer victims to those predators that are attacking them under the guise of being their supporter and being their friend. Because there's nothing worse than somebody who pretends to be your friend only to stab you in the back and cause you more harm than, you would be exposed to otherwise. It pisses me off it makes me fucking livid. I'm going to bring up Justice A through Z.
Hey lady, how are you?
I'm good. What you thinking?
Oh, I wasn't going to come up because I've been under the weather, but
Aww.
I had to say one thing. Your chat inspired me. Somebody said something to the effect of, understanding that Shanann wasn't the best spouse to be married to or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, none of us are, right?
Right. Yeah, right.
Seriously.
Like, I don't even try to pretend I'm going to be a spouse because I'm like, I can't cut that. No.
I mean, seriously, we all are going to fall short in so many ways, especially if we're being examined retroactively after we pass away. It's so easy to see the faults or
Absolutely.
to do the opposite and idolize. But what I really was just dying to say is that Shanann was married to Chris. Can you, Kelly, imagine being married to that spineless F-wad?
I know. I mean, seriously, I do think that at her core, there was like discontent and unhappiness. And I feel so bad for that. And it seems like she was trying so hard to find her way, and she had motivation and inspiration. And, she was doing everything she could to, make that turn for herself in her life. And at the very end, the saddest thing is at the very end, I think there's so much evidence of seeing that she's making sincere changes that most people are not brave enough or strong enough to make in themselves. And she was doing it. And then freaking, piece of shit. I mean, that's not a strong word. Then her husband, who she feels that she's doing a lot of this for, because she certainly believes she really loves him. She probably did. She didn't realize who he was, obviously. Takes her life from her and her children. It's like absolutely the most unfair, heinous, disgusting turn of events you can imagine in the story of their life.
And to be fair, I think both of them did a lot of the heavy lifting in that marriage from what you can see on the videotapes.
Yeah.
But just looking at how he never has an opinion about anything, he's always literally willing to let the girls like spit in his face, jump on him. Like the stuff he puts up with just shows like zero character,
right?
Zero boundaries,
right?
So it never surprised me seeing that type of personality that he would do something as crazy as what was done.
Yeah. You make a really good point there. It's like, Shanann did have a much stronger personality than him, and people had said, various things about that. But, he, in allowing what he allowed, he invited it. And in not providing what he failed to provide in their marriage as far as substance and strength, which I'm sure Shanann, being a woman, wanted in her man. She didn't seem to be very like alternative, like in that way. She seemed like she wanted, very much wanted to have a traditional role marriage, right? And he just failed to provide that which, in a traditional marriage, a man would provide a woman. So what's she left to do? I guess to make the best of it or to leave his ass. And she didn't leave his ass because she wanted to stay in it, because she believed in, she wanted to believe in their marriage and the possibility. And then when she had the kids, she wanted to, have that family. Everybody knows really that ideally a nuclear family that's intact is, generally speaking, most supportive to raising children. And that was really important to her. And then also, it's just fucking scary, the idea to like break off and be on your own. These are all very normal human things.
Yeah, being pregnant. I mean,
oh my God, especially
so
by the time that happened. Yeah. Yes.
It's always driven me crazy watching the videos of Chris trying to look like he's dad of the year, doing push-ups with the kids, riding him like a horse, mowing the lawn in the hot sun with the kid in the backpack.
Right.
He wasn't doing that stuff to entertain the kids. He was doing that stuff to try to make his body hot for NK.
Yeah, exactly. For his own selfish reasons. Exactly. I didn't know where you were going with that. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to stop her on that. But that's we're in agreement. Exactly why he was doing it. Exactly why he was doing it. That's right. And it's in, it's around like, it's May and June, I believe, of I'm not sure. Let me second. Wait. I'm gonna check on something. I was gonna give a date for when those videos were going on. Like all the ones of them doing squats with the girls and stuff. There's a series of like 2 months where there's like a shitload of those. And I was gonna say it's right before he met NK, but it might be the year before. I'm gonna have to look into that.
I think he's in the kind of condition that he was in during the NK type of time frame.
Yeah, I think so. Wait, I have a video on it. I'm going to look it up really quick.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So what else are you thinking about?
Well, I thought it was hilarious that you and I agreed with Rourke on anything.
Right.
But that thing, I'm glad you caught my comment asking for you to stop the video when he's looking up as he stops mid-sentence, because he looks so demonic the way he's looking up.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. Yeah,
it's a hideous expression, and you just wonder the things that are running through his head. Like it's a lot more than what he said.
Yeah, I think that he's really put off by that interviewer, because that interviewer was calling him out. He's like, "Look, dude, as far as I know, there wasn't a whole lot of physical evidence towards the murders. What you say about that?" And he's like, he didn't like it. Let's see here.
Well, while you're doing that, I thought of something kind of differently than I ever thought about it a few minutes ago. When you were talking about the death penalty with Chris and the Ruziks, they were so against it. But I didn't know until later that one of them was against it. One of them was for it. I thought that they were both against it. But it just got my brain going, and I thought, they have to have Chris alive just to project all of their heartbreak on. If he was gone into thin air too, like they would have nothing. Like they have to have something solid that they can focus that emotion on.
That makes a lot of sense. I never thought about that, but that really does make a lot of sense. It would almost be like there'd be almost a more vast void, more so than there already is, if he was gone. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Because he symbolizes the girls and the baby and Shanann. And it's just so disgusting. When I watch these girls, I just want to cry. They are so effing cute.
They're so cute. And look, I'm rolling the video here that of all those like squatting, working out things. Look at Bella making the muscles here. Look at that. Look at her, so cute. And yeah, that was just in a couple months before the murders. Yep, you're right. You're totally right.
It's gross. It's so gross.
Isn't
You know, I mean, it's fine for a parent to work out and get in shape, and it's fine for them to use their kids as little weights, but not to try to make it look like they're just the best parent in the world when they're doing that for themselves.
Right. Like that's what you're watching right here. This was in late May 2018, right before, everything went down.
Mm-hmm. He was getting ready for some action with the empanada. I mean, the gross empanada.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. All that stuff she looked up on the internet just haunts my brain.
Double penetration
in the backdoor action. Oh my God.
How to prepare for double penetration. Mm-hmm. Oh, I usually whisper that. I don't whisper that, but yeah.
So gross.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. So, well, I'm getting a little bit tired. I'm finding, but no, go ahead. If you have things to say them. I'm like,
I'll just say one more thing because I want to go to bed, go to sleep too. What was I gonna say? In all honesty, I really think if NK was a good person, she could be a beautiful woman. But when she is who she is the most disgusting thing on earth.
It just comes through.
In my humble opinion. And yeah, Shanann wasn't perfect, but she rocked. And how many men would have killed for her? No matter no matter what her problems were, no matter how much of a pain in the butt she was.
She was. Whenever someone says, Shanann was so much prettier than Nicole Kessinger, I think about, like, oh my God, hell yeah. I just think of them next to each other and I'm like, clearly.
Yeah, there's no comparison. No comparison. Yeah. And those girls are just the cutest things in the world.
They're so cute.
But again, as a parent of 4, I've always saw the style of the parenting that they did, allowing these girls to kind of run the roost. That was a setup for a disaster. That's just not how you parent. I mean,
right. And I remember Nicole Kessinger talking about something like, he was upset because, Shanann talked to him in a certain way and the girls were starting to pick it up and talk to him in a certain way. Well, motherfucker, you invited it. Like, you're going to be treated the way you allow people to treat you is how you're going to be treated. You train other people on how to treat you. So when everyone's, if you're not being treated well and then everybody jumps on the wagon and starts treating you like crap, maybe it's because all you're showing people is that you deserve to be treated like a piece of crap.
I remember when NK said that the kids were bossing him around.
Yeah.
Just like that damn dog was bossing her around, making her go up those stairs.
They're victims to everybody and everything. My God. Not their fault.
Evil Dieter making her look at every single photograph.
I know. I just still think Dieter was trying to run away from her. She was just like followed him. She's like, get away from me, you freaking skanky banana. I'm going upstairs. I never go upstairs by myself. I'm running.
Correct. You nailed it.
Poor Dieter.
I'm just going to hop off real quick because I know that you didn't want anyone to come up long and I need to get to sleep. And I love you.
Yes, well, I did want you to come up. I specifically had you in mind. So thank you for coming up. You must have read my mind.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. It's always a privilege.
Yes, thank you, darling. And be here tomorrow night.
I'll text you. Okay.
Awesome. Sounds good. Talk to you soon, sweetheart. Thanks for coming up.
And thanks, everybody. Bye.
And everybody go check out Justice A Through These channels. She has the channel too. She's awesome. She gets into great true crime discussions. I love it when I can make it. Sometimes during work, I turn, don't tell anyone though. It's always when I'm on my lunch hour because she's usually on during the daytime. So it's usually when I'm work, but I love it when I can catch you live. So, Oh God, thank you guys for being patient. For those of you who are waiting, thank you so much. I've had you like on the hook for hours and hours now. I really am sorry about that. I don't mean to be inconsiderate of your time, and I really appreciate you. Moderators, especially just because you are been doing so much and you've been hanging here for so long. And oh, hey, seriously, tomorrow night we've got a back to back 7 p.m. Eastern, and that's early for this channel. So guys, be there. It's going to be a premiere, so there's not going to be a notification for it. But the part 2 in its entirety, it's happening tomorrow at 7. I will be home. It is officially uploaded as of about 2 minutes ago, actually. So yeah, that's just what's going on. And then at 9 p.m., Kathleen, true crime author Kathleen McKenna is on talking, researching her book Blood and Marriage, which is a great read. I suggest you pick it up. And also her newest book, Dream House, about the Corey Richards case. She really is like the first to have the super inside scoop on that. So be here tomorrow night for that. She loves you guys, and she's a real treat. I mean, it's a real privilege for this channel to, it's a privilege for me to have her as a friend in this channel, to have her as a regular guest. So definitely check it out. And she's also going to help me talk about the information that was learned last Sunday that I failed so miserably at even attempting to deliver in that live stream. I'm sorry about that, but I was just nervous. It's a big deal, but she knows all about it, and we're going to talk together about what we can talk about. Because I put some of you on the spot having you come up on panel, because all of the words can't come out of my mouth, if you know what I mean. It's better to talk about that, or to it's better to put that information out in the form of a conversation rather than anything else. I won't be able to think of a word. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, I am going to peace out. I see all of you. Thank you so much for being here again. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you tomorrow night, and can't wait for that. And until then, remember, life is very hard, but please be good to each other. Be good to the victims and their family members. Take it easy on me too every now and then, won't ya? Not you guys in chat. You guys way back there. And especially be good to yourself, because you deserve it. And I know you do. So I will see you tomorrow night.